So, welcome again. We are now heading to the fourth and last class in this course, which is leading organizational change through conflict resolution. As we know, we are all in the midst of a VUCA world: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So, again, C for change is the only constant. So, organizational change will occur, change management is necessary, and that creates conflict. So conflict resolution, conflict management styles, and negotiation is very important. So as we enter this last class, we'll bring all the concepts together, and you will be then equipped to apply it in your own workplace. So let us begin. So as we start lesson 4, final lesson, leading organizational change through conflict resolution, let us focus and let us develop this framework. Organizational change is very effective and can be driven effectively with the right leadership. Again, leadership being the overarching theme. Leadership that is effective can navigate this organizational changes very rapidly and very effectively. And they basically develop a very clear, transparent communication, which promotes a very collaborative environment, as we already have discussed in the 3 previous lessons. And by actively engaging in these conflicts and positive conflict and leaning into these conflicts, it creates opportunities for growth, innovation, improved teamwork, building trust, fostering a positive culture, and promoting growth. And you're going to see that we're going to end this class with the rest, which is our future, which is the highly innovative environment that we're in, that not only healthcare is being faced with, but many, many other industries are, because it is our world. It is today and our world from this point onward. So, why is organizational change necessary? Well, first of all, again, we live in a VUCA world. We live in an evolving market dynamics where companies are shifting very rapidly. Companies that were very productive and were very efficient and were very financially stable are going bankrupt. Where we have hospitals that we never thought would close, they're closing. Where we have physicians letting go of their practice because they cannot afford and they cannot sustain themselves in this environment. Number 2, technology. Whenever we see the word technology and technology advancements, we know that there's emerging technologies that require not only skills, but updating infrastructure, processes, employee skills, but also finances. And finances are scarce. So therefore, that this change has to be very rapidly, and it has taken out quite a good number of not only physicians, but also healthcare organization. Customer needs. The customer is different. The customer has ChatGPT. The customer has ability to look and search and research is great, but in the hands of someone that doesn't understand it, could be a powerful tool and sometimes used for the negative. So changes in customer behavior and perceptions, demands, that is necessary for a company to have that ability, adaptability to deliver these solutions effectively, efficiently, timely, and with financial stability. And finally, globalized economy, and that impacts us all. We are interconnected. As I said in the first lesson, we're a small world. We are a small world, and we need to adapt very rapidly to an ever-changing market with different perceptions, different ideas, different solutions, and that demands continuous evolution and adaptation for a long-term success and successful outcomes and stability. So, what are the challenges of organizational change? Well, the first one is resistance. How many times, in the many times that I have done turnovers, or in the many times that I have led large hospitals, outpatients, facilities, or even in universities, I hear it all the time. Why are we changing? Everything is working. We've done this for many years. My question is, and what has been the outcome? It's not that they're not good, but the idea is to get to greatness because that is the competitive market right now. So resistant to change is normal. Again, remember, I always said I'm going to talk about books. There's a great book called Who Moved My Cheese? Who moved my cheese? Don't move my cheese. My cheese is here. So I always answer that we need to move cheese and the cheese needs to stink, to hurt, because then we know we are evolving and we're growing. So that normal human response needs to be managed with persuasion, negotiation, reduction of conflict, and bringing in buy-in and addressing, being active listener and addressing their concerns, and really focusing in on evidence-based approach and gathering information. We need to have clear vision. Again, you've heard this over and over again with conflict, clear vision, clarity, direction, same as negotiations. Okay, that is essential to be able to lead and to guide an organization through transitions and transformation. Change management, very difficult. One of the things I've always said, and I have transformed, I've emerged hospitals out of bankruptcy. I have turnover organizations, and change management is the hardest. The easiest is to look at the problem and to try to solve it. The hardest is to bring in the buy-in of the individuals or the naysayers or the employee resistant to do so. So in a day and in an environment of artificial intelligence, I can tell you that we don't need computers. We need chips to be able to put in the brains of individuals to be able to change accordingly with what is evolving in our world. So implementing this strategic approach to planning, communicating, and executing change is very, very challenging. However, it needs to be very empathetic. It needs to be done with a lot of clarity and communication to minimize those negative impacts. The culture of agility. One of the things that we discussed, as you know, is the VUCA, which is volatility. And how do we counter volatility? That's with vision. V volatility, V for vision. How do we counter the uncertainty with understanding? So if we understand, we can actually provide reduced fear. Think of COVID. Once individuals understood what it was, the fear still was there, but it was less. How do we counter complexity? With clarity, right? So this is how we counter the VUCA world. And how do we counter ambiguity? And that is with a culture of agility, fostering a culture that embraces change, that is not afraid of change, but that sees change as an opportunity for growth and innovation with long-term positive outcomes. Again, building resilience, building patience, building perseverance. That is how we develop a culture of agility. Then transparency and support. Maintaining that trust, that transparency, that means communicating. One of the things that I said in one of the hospitals that I emerged out of bankruptcy, just as the one that I faced great economic hardships that were already there, I inherited, was that I would bombard them with information. Memos and memos and memos. It's not because I wanted for them to be engaged and understand. So I created a newsletter. It was called Straight from the Top. I engaged them, I communicated with them. They now were, it doesn't mean that they were all in agreement, but at least they knew what was going on. And that created trust, created a relationship, and there was much more support. Not everyone liked what was happening. Not everyone liked the fact that some of them were going to be laid off, but they understood the reasons why. What are the key strategies for organizational change and through conflict resolution? Because with organizational change, we do have conflict. So what are those? Again, open and targeted communication. One of the things, as I said, a newsletter, communicating what was happening. That could happen is something as simple as building an OR. I mean, we all see when we have to build an OR, we have to build an emergency room, and it takes forever. And guess what? When you communicate, you reduce editorials. When individuals don't see what's happening, they create their own editorials. That actually adds to the conflict, and it adds it in a negative connotation. So again, creating communication solid plans is very important. Active listening, you've heard it many times throughout these 4 lessons, and having empathy. Again, everyone has a story. Everyone is a universe. So again, having time, and if you don't have it personally, creating a team that can help you and can be your champions to engaging in that active listening, showing empathy, creating those feelings that ultimately will create trust. Focus on the collaboration. Not being transparent and not communicating, you're really telling people you're not needed. And that's why they don't like it. So, focus on a collaborative approach where all the stakeholders are coming together to find common ground, but always with mutual respect. Prioritizing employee needs. I mean, one of the things that I will share with you in having to let go, and not an easy thing, thousands of employees because of financial hardships. There was one thing I always said: I would not do it around the holidays, and I would not do it on a Friday. And why did I say that? Well, because if I can do it on a Friday, that means I knew about it on Wednesday. And why didn't I do it on Wednesday, on a Friday? Weekends are for families. And it's tough, right? So do it beginning of the week where they have the time to plan. Why not the holidays? If I knew it around the holidays, I probably knew it before, because the holidays is a moment of peace and it's a moment of family. So again, that's empathizing and prioritizing those employee needs. And then training for conflict resolution. Again, it is not about you as a leader, it is about the team. So you need to train your team on this conflict resolution and building those skills. So let's talk a little bit about organizational change and change management. So organizational change is a movement. It's a movement. We're seeing it right now. Organizations need to change. Businesses need to change. Hospitals need to change. Employment, workforce needs to change. That's an organizational change. However, change management is the framework that we use. How are we going to do it? What are the processes? How do we apply the techniques? We have to focus on preparing, equipping, supporting individuals, being there when they ask questions. Again, not being defensive, not being competitive, but being empathetic and really being an active listener and teaching, because this is also part of teaching tools. Next, we have, what are the successful strategies for change management? Executive support. It starts from the top. We know that change is created in the bottom, but the delivery of the message comes from the top. So therefore, executives need to be visible. They need to be active. They can't hide in their ivory tower. They need to be part of that engagement. So again, it is about the entire organization, not just the people that are creating the change. The executive can lead, can provide the clarity, the direction, but it's really the buy-in that they need from the bottom to be able to create the change. Again, having that clear vision, sense of urgency. Another book that I'm going to let you know, there's a great book that's called Urgency. And another one's called Execution, which is, how do we execute with a sense of urgency, right? And not creating havoc, because everyone thinks of urgency, and in the healthcare, you think of something urgent or emergent as possible havoc. So how do we create that when basically what we're looking is for a buy-in and a teamwork? Communicating, like I said, in those very, very dark moments of letting go of people and having to turn over hospitals, communicating frequently. I always used to say it, I will communicate, good, bad, or ugly, but I will communicate. So communication is not just about kudos, and it's not just about congratulations. It is also about the bad news. And how do we have those crucial conversations to be able to build that trust to move forward? Engaging and involving stakeholders, not only internal stakeholders, but also external stakeholders. So again, when you're building these communities, you need to reach out for the communities. I can tell you that personally, I'm very grateful and I feel great gratitude that in moments of darkness and leading this hospital, there was a great community support. They understood. Again, I was meeting, I was communicating, I was providing the evidence-based, and there was a lot of community support that I still actually nurture to this day. Providing training and support and really giving resources to those employees that you need because it's about a team. It's not about just one person, so you need the team. So you need to equip them with the necessary skills and knowledge to be able to not only buy in, to be able to lean in and move forward. Successful strategies also to address, there are going to be the naysayers. There are going to be those that are going to say, she's not equipped to lead. She's mismanaging, and that's okay. Guess what? That's noise. And when you have a clear direction, you got to get rid of noise because it's not about you. And those tactics are ones that hit the leader to really get them weak. And it's not about you. You can change jobs. And in the next job, you could be the queen. So it's not about you, it's about what you need to do. So really identify those sources of resistance and try to negotiate with them and try to tell them why they're saying that, and not only why they're saying that, why they don't want to join the team of a positive moving forward. Building the coalition, which is the next thing, and really celebrating those short wins. Okay, so again, there are kudos within the negative conflict or actually positive conflict, but there are short wins. You have to be ready to be actively listening and always observing, because there are those, celebrate those early successes is very important. Monitor and adapt. And again, when you embed the change, that is not the end. That is not the end of organizational change. That is the beginning, right? That is the beginning of a journey that has to be led by a team, led by champions, and celebrated by all. I hope you enjoy this next Tech Talk. It's the shortest Tech Talk that we have in these 4 lessons. Is from Mark Mueller Eberstein. It's fantastic. It's very short, very to the point of how to lead. But in leading, you have to be the change. And that goes to the role models and how you walk the talk and how you celebrate those changes as part of the team. And that is not about you, that it's about the team and about the direction you want to go. So I hope you enjoy the Tech Talk by Mark Mueller Eberstein.
So we're talking about transformation and change, right? And there's a lot of change around us. Technology is changing, societies are changing, our personal lives are changing. So the only constant in life is really change. But why is change often so scary? Why do we not see the opportunities but only the risks? Why is it so hard to get out of the comfortable status quo we're in right now to move forward? Well, of course, we need some energy, right? If you're comfortable in one place, you need some energy, you need to move forward, you need to find the energy somewhere within or around you. And then, of course, we're human. We have emotions. And very often, our emotions get the better of us when confronted with dramatic transformational change around us. Professor Schlossberg has a great theory and a great model of transition that really explains the emotional roller coaster we are going through when confronted with radical transformation. Something big happens to us or around us or with us. The first thing is denial. This is not happening. It's not happening to us. It's not happening now. Eventually, though, reality sinks in. A lot of fear, anxiety take over. So what do we do? What does it mean for us? Will we have enough to eat? Will we have a roof over our head? What gaps will we be loved? Who knows? We're stressed. We try not to deal with it. But eventually, We'll try to find out how to practice some things, trying to say, oh, this works, this might not work, we are learning things. And then we start to discover the opportunities in the transformation. We're getting excited. We want to change the world and want to change everybody around us and with us, and realize everybody else might be, while we are super enthusiastic, might be still on the other side and be stuck in fear and anger and depression. So this is how it works. Sometimes it goes in seconds, sometimes it takes years, and unfortunately sometimes people and complete organizations get stuck somewhere in the middle of deep depression, unproductivity, and fear. So our goal, if we have reached the excitement about the transformation we want to drive, is to take the other people with us and help them through this emotional roller coaster. How do we do this? First, you want to have a super clear vision of what this transformation actually look like. It has to be clear, it has to be short, it has to be crisp. And by the way, 80% of all change management projects fail because they don't have a good vision. So if you get one thing right, this has a huge opportunity. Second, be clear on the impact. Of course, the negative impact if you don't move, or the people around you don't move, the organizations don't move. But also the positive impact that addresses the fears, the concerns, and the search for opportunities that is out there and with all of us, that gives them something to hold on, to get the energy, to get through this curve and get out and be enthusiastic and motivated and drive things forward. Communicate. If you're dealing with somebody who's in denial or a deep fear, they are not reading a 5-page document. So you have to be very clear and crisp what's in it for them, why they don't have to be afraid, and how they can help to move things forward and make it better. Over-communicate again and again and again according to where somebody is on their emotional curve. Doesn't matter if you're enthusiastic, if they're afraid, you need to be addressing them where they are and to deal with their fears. Fourth, don't do it alone. Build a team that helps you to understand the big picture. A diverse team with diverse viewpoints sharpens your vision, gets a better strategy, get a better plan, and you have a lot of allies that can help people and organizations through every stage of the emotional curve. And last but not least, you own the change. You are the leader of the change you want to see and you want to drive. Celebrate the victories step by step while you are going through this transformation. So people stay engaged, they see the progress, and you start a movement, and more people will join and support you in that journey. And at the end, don't forget to celebrate the victory. Celebrate, harness the energy, because one thing is sure, change is happening again. But if you have successfully managed a radical transformation once, the second time, it's not easy, but it's going to be easier. With that, I would invite you. We're in a world full of opportunities. Some of them look scary, but they are definitely out there to make our world a better place. And I would like you to become the change you want to see in the world. Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed the talk. As I said, again, like all the other tech talks, very applicable things that you can apply immediately once you finish this course, so you can apply immediately tomorrow. So these are lessons learned, journeys that are very, what can I say, very well traveled. And so I believe that, taking advantage of that is very important. And then applying that knowledge and skill set to do it and not be afraid. By the way, there's one thing I want to say as we all apply these components. We can't be afraid. We cannot be afraid to lose. We cannot be afraid to make a mistake, because it is in making that mistake that we actually develop conflict within ourselves, but that we grow. So again, not be afraid for change. I want to leave you with something that is very real. It is not the future. It is the now. It is how we're facing our workforce, how we're facing global economy, how we're facing our workforce, how we're facing everything right now. And that is the introduction of artificial intelligence. but I want to actually introduce it in the context of artificial intelligence and organizational change. So, artificial intelligence is here. It's not going to go away. It's going to continue to evolve, but it's going to continue. It will be a core discussion or core reasoning to creating a lot of anxiety, a lot of job insecurity, a lot of conflict, a lot of distrust, and a lot of fear. And when you put all that together in a blender, you've got conflict, and you've got conflict with real human emotions. So, how will we manage this? Well, if we put aside, again, same tactic, put aside the reason and really focus on that human-centered change, will be a bit much more successful. Okay, there's going to be resistance, there's going to be disengagement, there's going to be attitudes, there's going to be naysayers, but we need to calm the fear. And we need to calm the fear by preparing our employees and preparing our environment to really lean in, because we have to lean into artificial intelligence. It's not going to go away. I can actually talk when we had the phone, or when we had the computers, or in healthcare, when electronic medical record, we're going to have those that will literally be gone from the market because they did not adapt. They did not adapt to a VUCA world. Remember, ambiguity, which is what we're seeing possibly with artificial intelligence. How do we combat that? We combat it with agility. So we need to learn. There's a saying that says, you keep your friends close and your enemies closer. If you think artificial intelligence is an enemy, let's keep it closer. We have to learn the way, and we have to prepare our employees to not be fearful, but to be able to manage this transition and to be able to calm the fears and not enter into conflict. Because if not, then we don't go anywhere. But definitely, artificial intelligence will start replacing some jobs. That does not mean that human cannot be used elsewhere. So we got to be ready to give the resources to prepare those potential employees that could be gone with artificial intelligence, to put them elsewhere, because that is the humane and empathetic thing to do. So we need to lean in, we need to accept, and we need to move forward. So I will leave you almost on the last slide. This is an excellent TED Talk. This TED Talk was actually just written, it was just shown June of this year. Okay, so very, very, just a few months ago. And it's by Ulla Cruz Lettunen, and that is from Europe. And she discusses the AI and the future of work, which is disruption, because it is disruption. AI is coming in with a gap that we have. We have to become more efficient. We have to become more effective. We have to become more fiscally, consciously sustainable. And humans can only do so much. So we need the same thing that we need teams when we negotiate and when we enter conflict resolution. We need external help. And here it is. So it is all about AI and the future of work. The disruption it will bring, the reinvention, and how we have to reinvent ourselves and what is next. So I hope that you will enjoy the talk on AI and the future of work.
Flying cars, household robots, manned missions to planet Mars. The future would be exciting. That's what I thought as a school kid in the 1980s, when our teacher asked us to write an essay about the year 2000. And of course, these weren't just my own creative imagination, but common visions that kept appearing in pop culture. The future didn't turn out quite as I imagined. So I'm not commuting to work in a flying car. I'm not having my meal in a single pill. And we haven't made it to Mars yet. But the old predictions weren't too far off either. So we have video calls, we pay without cash, and we carry tiny computers in our pockets. This is a good reminder that technology often seems to be something whose impact we overestimate in the short run, but fail to see how much it will actually and how deeply it will impact us in the long run. It's especially good to keep in mind now that we are standing ahead of the artificial intelligence revolution. I dare say this, by 2040, the way we live and work will be quite different from today. We're already beginning to grasp the impact of AI in society, industry, and everyday life. So let me give you an example. In hospitals, AI can already detect cancerous cells better than radiologists. In media companies, AI creates articles, news, visuals. And in customer service, it has been forecasted that 80% of customer interactions will be handled by AI by the end of this year. So if this sounds transformative, just think how revolutionary the next step will be when AI agents enter the picture. So what are AI agents? They are active, independent AI systems that carry out tasks on their own. Unlike traditional models, they have access to a wide variety and selection of tools and skills and systems, which means that they can do complex tasks on their own without minimal human intervention. Think of them like digital employees. You give them a task and they just get on with it. But unlike human workers, AI agents never get tired, never feel hungry, never lose focus. They're available 24/7. So let me imagine this for the future. Your personal AI assistant has already woken up before you're still sleeping. It has planned your day. It knows your calendar, it has checked the traffic, it has checked the weather, it knows when you need to leave. Everything is prepared. Your coffee is brewing because it knows your routine. So the AI agents won't only assist us, they will already anticipate our next move, making life easier and smoother and more efficient. And in workplaces, they're able to team up, collaborate with us and independently by themselves. So one could almost say that they are the next evolutionary step in a long chain of labor of people and animals, humans, machines, and tools. So if AI agents are so much better in many ways than human workers, it's inevitable that much of today's work will shift to them. This may sound dramatic, and it is, but if we look at the history, it isn't the first time. Just think of the big cities of the early 20th century when horses used to be vital, central to urban transportation. Horses used to employ a lot of people. They were saddle makers and wagon smiths. But then when cars came about, they were all replaced by car mechanics and gas station attendants and even traffic police. So it's a great example of how technology won't only eliminate jobs, but it also transforms entire industries. IMF has estimated that 40% of jobs globally will be impacted by AI. And in developed economies, such as ours, the figure is even higher. It's 60%. So what should we do? First of all, I believe we need to be bold. So the change is already there. We cannot stop it. So we should embrace it, take an active role, and learn new skills. Even people who have recently gone to college should learn those new skills because it's new for everybody. These, especially the large language models, are new for all of us. But in many professions, also AI will actually help make people better. Take doctors, for example. So AI can shift through patient records and research studies, clinical studies, and create real-time insights for doctors, which actually allows them to focus on what they do the best, which is talking to patients and making tough calls and creating individualized treatment for everybody. So we should be bold, but boldness alone isn't enough. What happens if we don't understand the premises of AI? If it isn't transparent? And most important question is, who is actually in charge or responsible for AI's decisions? So we should also stay critical. And important is that AI doesn't have an innate sense of morality. AI has learned from data, our data, and from people that have labeled it, curated content, and built algorithms and fine-tuned them. So for better or worse, AI reflects us. And our ideas of right or wrong aren't the same. The MIT Moral Machine study has looked into this in great detail, and they have found out that actually there are big cultural differences between people's moral choices in the world. For example, if you think of self-driving cars, if an accident is unavoidable, should the car prioritize now the passengers or the bystanders? And to be honest, most of us wouldn't want a car that wouldn't put its passengers first. But if in the grander, bigger picture, there might be situations where it actually would make more sense to put the bystanders first, the others. So we need to stay critical, and we need to understand also the ethics and moral frameworks. And most importantly, these shouldn't be left to individual companies or developers. And that's why these frameworks such as the EU AI Act or the UNESCO AI ethics guidelines are steps in the right direction. So I would like to encourage you to be bold, to investigate AI and machine learning, try out different tools, also AI agents. And if you work for a big organization, think big. Think what are those big challenges that you face as a company and where AI could help. And at the same time, stay critical. Remember that AI is only as good as the data it has learned from. And what comes to ethics, there is no one single answer. While my childhood dreams didn't come true, there is one thing I've never had to really change my mind about, and that is the future is great and it's exciting. So just remember that AI is a powerful tool. It isn't a magic fix, and we are in the driver's seat. If we keep on this mindset, there is a true chance to make the future work for individuals and all of humanity. Let's take that journey together. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the TED Talk, and very powerful, at times fearful, because we can see quite a bit of even our own employees, how they're going to adapt to this change. However, as you saw, it ends with a very positive note, and it ends with a note of empathy, and it ends with a note of how we need to bring ethical conditions, because like in anything or any new invention or disruption, we can lose track of our critical thinking and how this would be adapted to be used in ethical manner for the greater of the population. So excellent talk, and I hope you will share it with others that are actually going and, as we speak, are facing this disruption called artificial intelligence. The case study to end our fourth and last lesson is a case study that involves a startup. Rapidly growing, very apropos to what we were discussing in artificial intelligence, a growing tech startup that decided to implement a new project management software to streamline operations and improve collaboration across the departments. The IT department, Information Technology Department, responsible for this software, found the marketing team's resistance. So here we have a conflict of two different departments. The marketing, we have information technology, obviously trying to drive the change, and they're very knowledgeable. They're very knowledgeable of this software. And you've got the marketing team that is resistant to adopting the system, and the system, and it's becoming frustrating. The marketing team felt that the software hindered their creative processes. You can feel and you can listen to the fear. Something is going to replace me. And it lacked flexibility, which obviously that's a human quality, right? So this led to escalating tensions, conflicts, dispute, and it got to creating a toxic work environment. And as we learned from lesson 1, when we are in a toxic environment, growth stalls. We cannot innovate. We cannot create. So the very same team that was fearful because they thought they were going to lose their creativity were possibly creating conflict that was stalling the fact of innovation and progress. So the question is, develop the framework for this conflict resolution process. So as you look at this case, how would you tackle? What are the different areas that you will work and possibly even prioritize in order to have a win-win situation or a collaborative situation for resolution of this conflict? So I hope you enjoy your work, and again, look forward to discussing this in our synchronous class. In summary, we have gone to the end, and it's the end of the class, but the beginning of your journey. Leadership, conflict negotiations, conflict management, and negotiations, they're all interwoven. They are all connected. Leadership serves as a guiding force. It serves as the direction, the clarity. The effective leaders play a crucial role, not only in this environment, but in all environments, whether it's change, whether it's peaceful, because we need to evolve. Conflict management is essential. We should not avoid it. We should lean in, not out. It's essential to excel, to be able to grow, and we need to learn the different management styles. Sometimes we will be competitive, sometimes we will be compromising, sometimes we will be collaborative, but we need to know when to use it. And by fostering a culture of open communication, we can mitigate these potential issues. So again, communicate, communicate, communicate. Negotiation, a critical skill that complements conflict management. Effective negotiation requires preparation, gathering of data, research, understanding both parties' interest, ability to create that win-win scenario. Doesn't mean that you're going to get 100%, but a win-win could be a 70, 80, could be a 50, 60, it could be depending, but you come up to that win-win scenario. Leaders who are proficient negotiators can achieve very favorable outcomes while preserving trust, building trust, preserving trust and relationships, and promoting collaboration. And finally, Organizational change is here. It will bring conflict as new initiatives and new technology evolve. It will disrupt. Definitely, it's a disruption of norms and practices. It will disrupt the status quo, but we must be ready and able to communicate this vision clearly, with direction, with clarity, addressing concerns, including being empathetic, involving every team member, and transforming that resistance into support. In summary, leadership shapes how conflict is perceived and managed, while skilled conflict resolution and negotiation facilitate organizational change. When integrated, these concepts create a dynamic framework that not only addresses challenges, but also drive growth and innovation within the organization. So I hope that you have enjoyed, learned, and are ready to put all these skills into action. Remember that knowledge is nothing if it's not shared and if it's not implemented. So I hope to see you and hope to welcome you in our synchronous class, where we're going to discuss the cases. We're going to apply some of the concepts. I would like to hear from you, real life experiences that you're going through right now, or that basically are possibly looking to go into. And we will have a very productive, collaborative, and engaging class as we meet again in our synchronous class. Thank you so much.